So Rachel, I thought we would talk a little bit about um, items and their shelf life. Like how long will you keep something? For example, like a book or like clothing. Because like yesterday, I was talking to my students, and they were surprised when I admitted that the shirt I was wearing I had had for over 10 years. Now they're young;
Right.
they can't imagine that.
No, that might be a function of being young
Right?
because
Exactly.
their clothes of 10 years ago are obviously too small.
Yeah. Are
It
you?
depends on
Do
the
you like to keep your
clothes.
clothes a long time?
If I really like them, I might.
Yeah. How often do you toss out your clothes?
I toss out clothes once or twice a year. I'll go through my wardrobe and throw out things that are too small or have started to look shabby. Um, but there are other things that I just keep year after year after year. Probably things people don't see as often, like pajamas, might last a little longer.
Yeah.
Some people advise that if you haven't worn something for 6 months, you should throw it out. But that seems to me to be not logical, given that there are 4 seasons and they last a year. If you
Yeah.
haven't worn something for a year, maybe you should consider throwing it out. But yeah, definitely at the start of the season, not in the opposite season.
Right.
You have to think about the weather.
Yeah, well, what about food? So we live in Japan. We're both teachers in Japan. So one thing I often wonder about is the sashimi and the sushi, the raw fish. Like how long can you keep it before you eat it? They say you're supposed to have it that night, but I sometimes eat it the next morning or
Yes.
even for lunch.
With fish, as well as other meats, I think it's very easy to tell because you can tell by the smell whether something's good or not. I actually think the rice is more dangerous.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it will grow bacteria. Because it's been warm, it'll grow bacteria easily at room temperature. The rice is the part you need to be careful about.
Well, what about like other foods? Like, are you somebody who's really strict about the expiration date or?
I'm not. I think the expiration date on most products is errs on the side of safety. Another thing is people confuse the best by date with the expiry date.
Right.
The best by date is just about freshness, flavor. For
And
example,
that's the
with
date
spices,
they put on the package in the
that's
store.
often the date that people
Sell
go
by, yeah.
Yeah, sell by and best by. For example, spices might have a best by date. After that, they might clump a little, they might lose a little flavor, but they're not dangerous.
You can still eat
You
it.
can still use them, yeah.
My
So it's
rule
hard
is
to
always
tell.
3 days. So I'll eat anything if it's within, except for meat maybe, but anything if it's within 3 days of the expiration date or the sell by date on the stores.
I think that matters. Yeah, to me, it makes an enormous difference what it is. For example, moyashi, which is bean sprouts. I'll eat them on the day or the day after, but not after that. They start getting bad really quickly. But for example, a jar of pickles, that's going to last much longer than the 3 days after.
I think the big one, I guess you're right about time, is dairy. The one, milk is obvious because milk you can smell.
Yes, but on the other hand, it just turns into yogurt.
Right, yeah. So that's the other one is yogurt. So yogurt, I'll see it in the fridge and I'm like, how long can I keep this? Like sometimes it'll be past the expiration date, but it smells fine. It looks fine.
Well, milk, yogurt is soured milk. So it's difficult to say at which point it sours because it's already sour.
Yeah, and cheese too lasts forever, it seems like.
Pretty much. You can see the mold on cheese.
Yeah. So what about if you see bread and there's a little mold on the bread?
No.
Are you old school? You cut around it? Or
I used to, and I used to cut the mold off cheese, but having learned more about the visible mold is only a small amount of it, and parts of mold you can't see are branching into the food.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so that makes it a little dodgier. So no, I probably wouldn't eat bread that had any kind of mold on it. And I'm dodgy about cheese too. That's got the wrong sort of mold on it.
Right.
It's the right sort of mold, like a blue cheese, and that's fine.
Right. And I should clarify here, neither of us are medical professionals. So
don't take this advice.
Don't take our advice. We're just talking about our own habits here. So what about juice? What about juice? Like how long can you keep juice? Can you smell when juice is bad?
I don't usually buy juice, so I don't really know.
Oh. Yeah.
Maybe you can smell it.
Maybe you can smell it.
Yeah, I'd probably toss juice because I'm not experienced enough with it, obviously, to have made my own mind up about it. So I'd probably go by the date for that one.
What's interesting is when you see some foods that you think would last forever, but actually they won't. They just have an expiration date that's way in the future, like canned goods.
Yes,
Sometimes it's surprising when you're like, oh, there actually is an expiration date on there,
there is.
but it's way in the future.
Way in the future. As long as the can's not dented, I think. is
Or
the-
rusty, right?
The rule for that, yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting topic. So I'm here with Rachel, and we were talking about expiration date. So you were saying that you throw out your clothes regularly.
Mm-hmm. Fairly
Um,
regularly.
Do you donate them or just toss them?
I put them in the recycling
Oh, there you go.
and hope they're going to be remade into something else.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I always like take it out on the day that they'll say that they'll pick up
Yeah.
clothes.
The reason for that is because they usually throw clothes out when they've started to look a bit shabby, so I don't think anyone else wants to wear them by
Right.
that stage.
What about furniture? How often do you try to get new furniture?
Almost never. That's
Yeah.
that's something I don't. Yeah, I'll put up with what I've got.
Yeah,
It seems like such a waste to throw out such large things.
yeah. But you never want to replace the couch or the
The
chair.
couch has been replaced 3 or 4 times.
Right.
That's a big one, but we've still got the same kitchen table. We did get some new chairs.
Yeah, I've never been a big furniture guy, but when I see something that's really cheap, like I would never buy new furniture. I'm always amazed like who buys new furniture because when you walk by a store and you see the furniture, it's so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to sound really cheap, but it's like I'm like, wow, why would you pay hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars for that when you can just buy one used or whatever for $10 or $20?
Definitely a used furniture person now. When we
Yeah.
moved into our house, we did go to a furniture store and bought all new furniture. It's easy at the start and everything looks new and it's kind of nice. But I almost exclusively buy secondhand furniture now. You can, depending on which store you go to, you can get some really good bargains on some beautiful old antique that look really nice in your house and cost a fraction of something new.
Yeah, that's why you like anything that's made with metal or wood because usually you think it's going to age well.
Yes.
Plastic, not so much.
No, I've definitely sworn off plastic. I think plastic's a fill-in if you need something quickly
Yeah.
and cheaply, but definitely don't like to buy plastic now.
So what about like electronic goods, like getting a new TV, new refrigerator, stuff like that? Like how
Well,
often do you buy?
that we just wait until that breaks down. That's a pretty easy one.
What about the TV though? The TVs don't break down; they go on forever. Like how often do you think, oh, I want a new TV, I want a new, nicer TV?
Our
Or
last TV broke.
it did?
Well, we had lightning hit the house,
Oh,
and we lost several electronic items. We lost
Wow.
a keyboard and a computer. I think we lost 2 out of. We had 3 hard disk DVD players.
so it was
We
an
lost
electrical
2.
surge that like fried all the circuits
It
and they were.
fried the house. Yeah, pretty much.
Wow, I did not know that could happen.
Yeah.
So Rachel, you said that in your home country of New Zealand, there's lots of birds that don't fly.
Yes, there are a lot of birds that don't fly.
Wow, see, I only knew of the kiwi and of course the penguin, but I didn't know of other ones. So first, the kiwi doesn't
Yes,
fly,
that's
right?
the famous one.
Right,
They don't fly, but they can run very fast. I've
Right.
seen them.
and like, are the kiwi all over? Like, are there different types of kiwi?
There are several different varieties. They're very rare though, and they're nocturnal. So
Oh, nocturnal.
I'd say most New Zealanders have never seen one in the wild. I've only seen them in kiwi parks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You
Okay.
Don't see them.
So I thought they'd be like kangaroos in Australia or something. You
No,
go
they're
and there's
very,
one.
very precious and very rare.
Oh, wow.
One that you see more often is a pukeko, which is it looks a little bit like a stork, I suppose, except it's dark blue.
What's it called?
Pukeko.
Pukeko.
Yeah, and they're a lot more common. And takahe is another one.
So the first one, though,
You can
let's
see
go-
them along the side of the road when you're driving through the countryside. They're much more common.
So this pukeko, does it fly?
No, they don't fly.
Really? And it's like
Yeah.
a stork. It has long legs.
It has quite long legs. Yeah, it's a very cute little bird, but it's very dark.
How tall is it? Like up to your knee, up to your hip?
Maybe up to your knees.
Really?
Cute little bird.
That's awesome. And so what was the other one you mentioned?
Takahe, it's a very similar looking to that one. It's a little different, difficult to tell apart.
Really? And it's also like kind of dark bluish?
Yeah. Another one's a kakapo, is a very famous one. It's New Zealand's flightless green parrot. It's kind of like a large fat parrot that lives on the ground.
Really?
It's extremely rare. I'm not sure what the numbers are now, but around 20 years ago, I think there were only 45 left.
Oh, that is
Extremely
rare.
So
Wow.
there's an intensive breeding program for them. And
Yeah.
of course, nobody's seen those in the wild.
Wow, yeah, you have to be careful to go like the way of
You
the
do.
Tasmanian tiger.
They breed and they nest on the ground. They lay their eggs on the ground, so they're very vulnerable to introduced predators, to any animals.
Yeah, I know that like you don't have snakes, but I know that snakes, when they got into Guam, like decimated the bird population.
Yep, that's what would happen, and that's why New Zealand immigration or customs is very strict about what kind of animals you can bring in. We don't even have snakes in zoos.
That's smart. Yeah.
Michael Jackson famously came to New Zealand in the 1980s and wanted to bring his pet snake with him, and he wasn't allowed to.
Oh, good on you.
There were no exceptions to that rule.
Are there any other birds that don't fly? Like, for example, do you have penguins
Oh, yes, there's lots of penguins in New Zealand.
in the south, right?
Yeah, in the south. Oh, they come up to the north sometimes.
Really?
Occasionally you see them.
That far north?
Yeah, occasionally. The big colonies are down south.
Oh, that's amazing. How cool. Any other birds that don't fly?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I'll have to look it up on the internet.
No, that's
But-
still though. That's still
Yeah.
that's quite a few. That's
they are quite a
so
few.
nice. Yeah, that's
The
interesting.
most famous was the moa, of course,
The moa?
which is an ostrich-sized bird.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but they were killed off before Europeans arrived in New Zealand.
Oh, easy hunting.
They were easy hunting, yeah,
Yeah.
and big feast. Yeah.
It's funny how when you go to a place, you really want to see like a local animal. So last year I went to the Middle East. I went to UAE and Oman, and I just wanted to see a camel.
Camels,
I wanted
yeah.
to see a camel so bad. And I thought, like, I had
Everyone
the feeling
drives
that it'd be on the
Mercedes these
side of the
days.
road, there'd be a camel. And I was actually kind of going out in the countryside. I wasn't just in
Yeah.
the city. And I never saw a camel. And I was asking people to work there. They're like, oh, yeah, you do see them. But I was just so heartbroken that I never saw a camel.
Oh.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite animals. I just think they look so cool. So when I go to New Zealand, I have to make sure I see a kiwi.
But you'll have to go to the Kiwi House.
The Kiwi House?
Kiwi House, it's cool. Or just look up zoos.
And they got them.
Yep, they got them there. But you won't see them just driving around.
So, Rachel, you are from New Zealand, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Now, when I lived in London many years ago, my roommate was from New Zealand, really nice guy, and he had the coolest job. He would ride around a motorbike in New Zealand, in the
Yes.
bush, as he called
Yes.
it, the wild, as we say,
The bush.
the bush, and his job was to just kill invasive species. That was his job. Just go out and plant traps for rabbits and
Yes, that's right. Actually, I have a friend who does that now.
really.
Yes.
So it's that big of a problem. You have to like
It's a huge problem, yeah.
really, like, so what animals are a problem?
Rabbits, like you mentioned. Possums are a big problem in the bush because they eat a lot of the native plants.
We have possums too in America, in Northern California, and they are disgusting. I love animals, but they're one animal I don't like. They're nasty.
There is a big possum hunt in many areas every year, and they're starting to sell the pelts as fur because it's not a protected species, so there's no limits on how much you can catch and how much fur you can sell.
Yeah, and they often have rabies, right? At least in the States, we have to be very
no,
careful
we don't
of
have
them.
rabies in New Zealand.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yes, so
Yeah,
No
we have
animals
crazy
have
stories
rabies.
of possums or raccoons having rabies. And so when you see one, like, they tell you, do not touch it, don't go near
no,
it,
we don't have that
because if you get bit, you're not good. And I got bit by a dog when I was in Thailand and had to get the rabies shot, and it was not fun.
oh, that sounds awful.
Yeah, and then luckily for me, I went in to get the shot because I didn't know really about rabies. I wasn't educated about it, and I thought, well, the dog just bit me a little bit, but I better go and check. And then the doctor was like, oh, no, it can kill you. Like, yeah, you better get it checked out.
No,
So
this is one of the reasons we have very strict import laws in New Zealand because we've seen the damage that can be done, and we're very strict now. And rabies is one of the diseases that we don't have and are very keen not to ever have.
yeah, you hope so. So you have a problem with possums and with rabbits. Anything
Rabbits
else?
on farms. There's also wild deer and boar in the forests who also do a lot of damage, and stray cats and dogs as well also kill a lot of native species. There's no native animals in New Zealand. The only mammals that are native to New Zealand are dolphins and bats. So there's no natural hunters except for hawks. So the birds, a lot of the birds have lost the ability to fly, and they nest on the ground. So they're
Oh, wow.
enormously vulnerable to predator species like cats and dogs. They've almost completely decimated many bird species. So that's why there are hunters throughout New Zealand who are basically given free rein to shoot whatever they can find because they are so destructive to the natural environment.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that you have some campaign to have like no predators by a certain year, right? Like a new thing in New Zealand.
I haven't heard of that, but I wouldn't be surprised. I think that's always been a goal.
I think that it was in the news. I'll have to check, so I could be wrong, but I think it was 2050 is the goal of the government to have no predators.
That would be amazing.
And they say the big one is dogs and cats. That's like the
Cats are a
sticking
huge
point.
one, yeah, they're starting to become much stricter about controlling cats and dogs now, keeping cats inside and keeping dogs leashed,
Yeah.
so that they don't run off into the bush and cause a lot of problems.
But dogs, I think, are more domesticated. They're probably not as dangerous. But cats are basically, they're not really that domesticated. They're still natural hunters.
Yeah, we keep them with us to hunt, pests like mice who live with us. Yeah, so they catch a lot of birds. But with the birds nesting on the ground and unable to fly, it's very easy for the dogs to kill them as well.
Oh, I see.
So,
And dogs just can be kind of naughty sometimes.
heck yes. And they run off.
Wow. So what do you think? Do you think your country can achieve this goal, no predators, by 2050?
It sounds very challenging. I think at present only some of the offshore islands are completely pest-free. No predators. Yeah, that's not quite the same as no pests. That's because pests also include things like rabbits and possums and deer, and that don't eat the native species. So maybe just predator-free might be a bit more achievable, I think.